Dr. Tom Close. I'm so glad you're here, recording for Last Saturday Poets. This is an experiment in an audible anthology instead of a book for 2025. So I've known you for a long time, Dr. Close, and I wish you would tell me about your history growing up in Colorado.
Yeah, my grandmother was born here back in 1895, and so I'm a chauvinistic third-generation Colorado native, and I have to admit all the people that have come in since then, they have a right to be there, and I'm delighted that they can see what a beautiful state we live in, and I spent my growing up years in the mountains a lot, climbing a lot of mountains, and that's still my love, is the kind of mystical association with the natural world. And Colorado's got a lot of it.
And you have made your life as a healer, too, with being a chiropractor, and I view you as kind of a shaman, to tell you the truth. I've known you in your healing mode, and just with a few clicks, you can make a big difference in a person's life. So I've appreciated that over the years. I really have.
Well, the great thing about being a chiropractor, you're working with the innate intelligence that's housed in the nervous system. So that's where the healing comes from. Early on in chiropractic college, one of my wise teachers says, "Well, boys, you're in a good profession. God does the healing and the doctor collects the fee." So that's kind of
that's good.
What it's like.
That's really good. And how long have you been writing poetry?
I guess since 10th grade. I had a great English teacher, and we read a book called Huck Finn, and I went, oh my God, it just blew my mind. And then we went and we read Thoreau and Emily Dickinson and Walt Whitman and Emerson and all that stuff. And ever since then, I've just been in love with poetry. You know, I guess that, like Thoreau said, my life, I said my wife is my poem, and that's also true. But my life is a poem I would have written, but I could not both live and utter it. So I like to read other people's poetry, and occasionally, and that inspires me, because then I own it, you know. And then when you write your own, that's kind of more fun too. So.
Oh, good. So the first one is entitled.
This is a poem titled Autumn, and now it is autumn, so we'll go with this one. Autumn. Something invisible and very quiet is drifting down from the branches of the pines and the firs, saturating the undergrowth. The air is loitering with a curious detachment, that certain slant of the sun painting the trees of the standing ones. The closets in the mind open, and the waves of sweetness and of melancholy begin. For decades of autumns, lime green, yellow, orange, quaking aspen leaves, rust-colored oak bushes, and the peculiar vast silent envelope containing the sounds of birds and winds and traffic. The heart aches a little for former afternoons, the ungraspable, the inexpressible, memories of friends swallowed up by the past. White-bearded Yahweh, high up in the stratosphere among the wispy clouds, is a little drowsy now, dozing off rather contentedly after millions of millennia of creating uncounted suns, and leaving off the counting of the hairs of the heads of the humans and the feathers of the sparrows. His daughter goddess will take care of things now, withdrawing the green from the leaves and leaving bright hieroglyphics of the Almighty. Like snowflakes, each unique leaf with a message for humans. You're children of the inscrutable Great Mother. Relax on her lap for a moment. Thank you. I guess I'll read a short story.
Good.
I stumbled on this last night, and I read it, and I thought, oh, it's there's something in there. I was trying to remember some years ago my own interface with the unknown, And this was an attempt to express that, I guess. The boy who found a big hole inside himself. Once upon a time there was a young boy who early one morning found a big hole inside of himself. He was just sitting by himself in his backyard, and as if by accident, everything just stopped. Everything. Like the feeling just before he would doze off again for a short while after he woke up in the morning. And there it was. He even felt that whoever he was had stopped, and everything became perfectly still and empty. And inside was a big space in the very middle of his 10-year-old chest. And then he looked inside with his eyes closed to the middle of his head, and that's when it got a little scary. His head seemed to expand like when you blow a big bubble and it fills with air. He caught his breath just before he felt he would forget who and where he was. He felt like he would fall deeply down somewhere, even though he had this astonishing sense that there was no bottom to hit. As much as he was secretly thrilled with this discovery, it was a concern, kind of like the feeling in his lower body when he thought about the black-haired girl that lived down the street. He didn't know where the mysterious, irresistible feeling would go, but he couldn't resist going to the edge of where that big unknown began. The hole would go totally away if he didn't think of it, but with a little remembering he could relax, and sure enough, it was always there. When he was a little younger, his dad would tell him made-up bedtime stories about a little boy who ran away from home and went on adventures, working on a farm, riding a horse, driving a truck, making furniture in a factory, lots of different adventures. But eventually, after years, he'd always come back home, and when he did, his dad would say, "And the little boy had a man's face." It was a sweet and cozy feeling when he heard those stories, and somehow there was that same feeling when he went inside to that mysterious hole. The boy had some really good friends, and he loved playing with them, loved being silly and laughing with them. He spent a lot of time imagining they were great athletes or adventurers. He also had too much homework from school, it seemed. He did it, but he didn't like it. With those and other distractions, he wasn't much in touch with the hole. And he told no one about it because he thought it strange, like maybe he shouldn't have such a thing inside himself, like he shouldn't be thinking about it and messing around with it. One night he was camping out with his friends in the mountains on a night when there was no moon. One of those nights away from city stars where there are so many stars in the sky it's downright scary. The scout leader who took the boys on the trip was talking about vast interstellar distances. He said if one could go as fast as the speed of light, it would only take a second to get to the moon. It would take 9 minutes to get to the sun, and to get to the nearest star, it would take 8 years. And to get to the nearest galaxy, Andromeda, it would take 2.5 million years. The boy could tell that the scoutmaster was in awe of the whole situation, and so were all his friends. It was hard for him to make sense of it all, and it made his head kind of ache a little. But like he went off to the edge of the hole inside himself, it was a delicious feeling. In science class about that time, the subject was what causes the weather. It was all about air and water movements and how sometimes tornadoes and hurricanes would develop. There was a big picture of a hurricane in his book, and when he saw the hole in the middle of that viciously swirling clouds, and a picture of how in the eye of the hurricane it was sunny and still, something inside him was fascinated. It reminded him of the hole that had been haunting him for almost as long as he could remember. Even though he had an easy life with parents that were really nice and loving to him, he was often unhappy for some reason, upset about little things like having to do chores and homework, or worried about if people liked him. He struggled wondering if he was a good boy or if he just wasn't good enough, and good enough at sports and school as he should be, things like that. He felt shaky around that same girl he liked, and thought how horrible it would be if she didn't like him, or even how embarrassed he'd feel if she knew how much he liked her. He didn't like to feel those feelings, so he'd end up wanting mostly to play with his friends as much as possible. Or play catch with himself, throwing a ball against the wall and pretending he was a major league infielder making heroic game-saving plays. Or staving off bad guys with the weed-digging fork, protecting his imaginary girlfriend. He wondered if his other friends had those insecure feelings and decided they probably didn't, just him, and he kept it secret. One day, though, a funny feeling came on him. He was sitting at his school after the school year ended, and he was waiting for his friends to come and play. He thought of some things that had happened the last school year. Some nice fun things and some yucky things. Things that he had worried about, like the bad grade in math, or when that girl he really liked looked at him funny, and he looked away, and she looked away quickly, burning with embarrassment, and he looked away quickly. Then something rather extraordinary occurred, and he slipped into an odd, timeless state. Quite funny for a young boy. It occurred to him to really try to figure out where those things that happened were. Where were they? Where actually and really were they now? It seemed like they were in a space like the hole inside himself, kind of nowhere. Where did all that stuff that happened actually go? Where was it? He could remember it, but where was it now? Was it gone? It must be gone, because if it went nowhere, where is that nowhere? And if it's nowhere, it must be gone. For a few moments he felt a sense of freedom from everything he was so worried about. He promised himself he would remember his discovery. But since he couldn't wrap his mind around the whole thing for very long, and even though it enchanted him to think about it, it soon slipped away. Then something similar happened to him about that time which affected him even more deeply. As great as it was, he still forgot about it a few years. He was so busy doing things. And he forgot about it almost completely until he was much older, with children and grandchildren of his own. It was something he remembered, how oddly peaceful was that eye in the middle of the hurricane. He noticed that the hole inside him, as foreign as it seemed at times, was like a marvelous open door to a space of enormous freedom. Freedom from all his troubles. No one had told him about it, but he noticed that he could secretly go there, and then everything was okay. In fact, it was beyond okay. It was a quietly magnificent feeling. He could imagine whenever he felt like, and imagining it, he was perfectly happy. So happy he didn't even compare it to being unhappy. Just everything was perfect. When the boy had grown 60 years older, an old gray-haired man now, he woke up from a peaceful slumber one afternoon and was remembering some of these things that occurred to his younger life and thought it would be fun to write a story about it. And it was a good idea because he realized he was still that young boy, that nothing truly significant had changed. Not really. There were still all the challenges of being human, except now they felt more important, much more important. Children and grandchildren with troubles of their own. Challenges at work and bills to pay, taxes, illness, a whole big planet of beings full of fears, and a world with seemingly no end to troubles and tragedies. But the whole, that marvelous space devoid of any dimensions, remained unchanged, dwelling in perfect peace, boundless and unconcerned. He could still sense that emptiness, an enormous inner room that spread limitlessly up and out. And he could sense that his skin was like an insubstantial border between his inside and the world outside. Sometimes when he could step aside from all his efforts to sort out his life by thinking about and pondering it, there remained that quiet and utter mystery, and the man disappeared. And in that disappearance he discovered the quiet thrill of what he really was. Even in the most ordinary circumstances there would occur often unasked for that sweet simple instant of recognition. Recognition simply that life is alive. Life is here, always here, and it belongs to itself. And it doesn't even know it until someone knows it. And every one of those ones that knows it, it seems, would like to hold it and own it, but amazingly, it belongs only to itself, and amazingly, it's nowhere, and amazingly and wonderful beyond words, it's everywhere. The little boy had always been home, and now the little boy had an old man's face. Thank you. This inspired me to read this. Are we doing good time-wise?
I think we're fine.
With Linda reading her poems, I guess I'll read this again. I've read this before, but this is kind of an Irish fantasy that came to me when we were camped out on a hillside in southern Oregon. This is called What Happened in the Oak Hollow. The acorn men are dancing. The dandelion is sending parachutes of joyful news in all directions. And the tiny people's damselfly wings are feverish in anticipation as the infant king returns home to the forest and my mind. The good little people have been waiting a long, long time, and now they take my fingers in their darling hands of light and lead me back far, far into my childhood days, the days of real magic. I don't remember when or why the argument with life began, nor when the fear came in and I stopped hearing the sweet, soothing whispers. But now through luck or grace they have begun again. The wind in the trees, the water over the stones, the singing of the meadowlark, the hawk, the sparrow, praising the Infinite One and singing constantly of timelessness and eternal delight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was
Very
fun.
whimsical and has a lot of depth that you just kind of want to go there. And I've been to where you live, and it feels like you must be really happy there, you and Linda.
We're
Very happy. Yeah.
There was a baseball player named Lou Gehrig who once he was really sick, and his goodbye address to the Yankee Stadium that one day he says, "I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth," and often I think that way too. It's just very grateful. I don't know how that I deserved it, but anyway,
That's wonderful.
Very grateful for.
Do you feel like singing?
Oh, you want the Cosmos song?
I wish you would, if
Really?
you feel like it.
Okay,
We ought to
this-
have that captured on tape.
This is stolen from Monty Python at the end of The Meaning of Life, I think it is. Just remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. Just remember that we're standing on a planet that's evolving, revolving at 900 miles an hour. It's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so they reckon, the sun, which is the source of all our power. And the sun and you and me and all the stars that you can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day in an outer spiral arm at 40,000 miles a second in a galaxy we call the Milky Way. Our galaxy itself contains 100 billion stars. It's 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle 16,000 light years thick, but out by us it's just 3,000 light years wide. It's 20,000 light years to galactic central point. We go around every 200 million years. And our galaxy is only one of millions of billions in this amazing and expanding universe. The universe itself keeps on expanding and expanding in all of the directions it can whiz. As fast as it can go, the speed of light, that's 12 million miles a minute, and that's the fastest speed there is. So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth, and pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up above, 'Cause there's bugger all here down on earth. Thank you,
Thank
Monty
you.
Python.
Thank you for reading.
This is really fun.
I
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Judy.
Good. And we'll
Yeah.
have this archived and you can save it and give it to friends and who knows what all with it. Thank you
Okay,
so
good.
much.
You bet.